On va parler d'un incroyable projet qui a pour nom de code A.WAY Smart City. Alors, que se cache-t-il donc derrière ce nom de code? Je laisse Xavier Fournet, qui est partenaire chez KPMG en charge de l'infrastructure et de la construction, nous en parler. Bienvenue Xavier, merci beaucoup d'être avec nous. Je vous laisse la parole.
Oui, alors j'introduis juste l'œuvre de Juergen, qui est un fameux architecte allemand qui a fondé ce projet qui est très disruptif. Donc, mais avant, je voulais juste partager une conviction et quelques réflexions sur le sujet de la Smart City. Ma conviction, c'est que la Smart City, ça va être un fantastique terrain de jeu pour l'IA et les robots. Pourquoi? Parce que en fait, ce qui préoccupe l'élu, c'est-à-dire celui qui dirige et qui va diriger la Smart City, c'est principalement le bien-être du citoyen. Et ma conviction, c'est que l'IA, les robots, mais aussi les autres technologies sont et vont être développées pour développer ce bien-être et également le mieux vivre ensemble et le mieux vivre dans la ville. Donc ça, c'est un point très très important que je voulais vous livrer, et vous allez voir que finalement Juergen également a bien travaillé sur ce sujet-là au travers de son projet A.WAY. La deuxième chose, c'est que l'élu, il va être inquiet. Il va être inquiet parce que la techno, il ne la connaît pas bien. Et puis, ça va quand même transformer beaucoup le mode de vie de ses citoyens. Et donc là, pour vaincre ces inquiétudes, il va falloir beaucoup de pédagogie, bien évidemment, mais aussi ne pas négliger un certain nombre de préceptes que je veux vous dire aujourd'hui. Le premier, en fait, finalement, la solution, je dirais pour l'élu, mais même pour vous, pour ceux qui sont demain les acteurs de la Smart City, c'est peut-être un peu inscrit sur le fronton de nos mairies. Il y a 3 mots. Le premier, c'est liberté. Le deuxième, c'est égalité. Et puis le troisième, c'est fraternité. Et avec ça, on devrait arriver à faire une Smart City vivable pour ses usagers et donc pour les citoyens. La première chose, la liberté, c'est absolument fondamental. C'était rappelé ce matin, toutes les solutions qui permettront d'augmenter cette liberté, elles retrouveront le succès. Toutes celles qui contraindront la liberté seront vouées à l'échec. Ça, c'est notre conviction, c'est ma conviction. La deuxième, le point important, donc, est central, et dans la première table ronde de ce matin, pour ceux qui étaient là, c'est que le sujet de la protection des données est un point capital. S'il n'y a pas de protection des données, il n'y aura pas de confiance, et donc toutes les applications qui pourront être développées ne seront pas adoptées. Il y aura une très forte crainte. Donc c'est un point central, parce que la protection de la donnée, c'est le garant de la liberté d'agir, la liberté de penser, et aussi la liberté de se déplacer. Donc si vous avez des bonnes idées pour aller voir les élus, c'est vraiment le sujet numéro 1 de leur préoccupation. C'est très clair quand on va les rencontrer. Le deuxième mot qu'il y a sur le fronton des mairies, c'est égalité. Et là, je dirais, pour poursuivre la métaphore un peu sportive, c'est que en termes d'égalité, la partie est déjà un peu gagnée. Pourquoi? Parce que grâce aux smartphones, grâce aux réseaux sociaux, tout le monde a finalement accès à une information large, partagée, en même temps. Donc il n'y a pas de différence, il n'y a pas de priorité. Et dernier point, relativement gratuite. Donc moi, mon sentiment, c'est que plus il y aura de techno dans la ville, plus il y aura un sentiment d'égalité. Le dernier sujet, c'est fraternité. Et la fraternité, c'est, je dirais, et je reprends un point architectural, c'est que pour moi, la fraternité, c'est la pierre d'angle. La pierre d'angle, c'est quand dans un édifice, quand vous retirez la pierre d'angle, l'édifice s'écroule. Donc elle est absolument indispensable au succès de la Smart City. Alors, pour, je dirais, cultiver le terreau de la fraternité, il faut absolument créer de nouveaux espaces de partage. Alors, il y en a certains qui existent déjà. Station F en est un, le coworking, ça marche, le co-living, ça se développe, notamment outre-Atlantique. Bon, et puis d'autres espaces dans lesquels les gens vont pouvoir se rencontrer. Quel est donc celui qui va créer ces nouveaux espaces? Quel est donc celui qui va penser la ville de demain? qui va nous faire aussi réfléchir sur ce que doit être cette ville, en nous proposant des choses un peu disruptives, eh bien c'est l'architecte. C'est l'architecte urbaniste, c'est l'architecte constructeur qui va, lui, grâce aux infrastructures, aux nouvelles infrastructures qu'il va concevoir, aux nouveaux bâtiments, qui seront évidemment plus tournés vers les usages, eh bien nous aider, en mode un peu disruptif aujourd'hui, à nous acculturer à la ville de demain. Qu'est-ce que ce sera? Si on n'en prend pas l'habitude aujourd'hui, eh bien, ça sera très difficile d'y vivre demain. Voilà, donc j'en ai un peu terminé sur mon propos introductif. Et évidemment, je pense qu'en termes de disruption, vous allez voir, Juergen Mayer est, je dirais, un maître penseur, puisqu'il a conçu un projet urbanistique sur le transport. Il a également conçu un certain nombre d'autres, je dirais, bons exemples de lieux de rencontre. Je vous invite à... Il y avait dans le hall tout à l'heure son petit dépliant. Il y a notamment une expérience de parasols qui ont été implantés dans le centre de Séville pendant quelques années lors de l'exposition universelle. Et puis une autre expérience qui s'appelle Times Square with Love, qui est assez surprenante et qui a été développée par Juergen. Donc voilà, je laisse maintenant très rapidement la parole à Juergen, qui va revenir sur son projet très nouveau et qui mérite toute l'attention. Juergen, c'est à toi.
Merci, Xavier. Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation, and I'm sorry, I do understand French quite well, and I used to speak it quite well, but there are not enough occasions where I can practice it, so it will be in English. But they're fantastic translators, as I experienced this morning, so also the applause should go to the translation. I would like to add a little bit of a speculation to today's discussion on what smart technologies are introducing to our cities and how our cities are changing with these technologies. And it's not about judging if this is good or bad, but I'm projecting a certain development that I think is worth looking at and seeing if that's where we want it to go. It's about driverless cars, and everybody seems to agree that this is the future. There is nobody really who questions that they will come at some point. The matter is when and in which form. But in a way, it's a speculation on what will, should, could, or would have been in the future. And therefore, it's a speculation on futur parfait. I'm introducing you a future that we all experienced around 1985, for those who were still born at that time, already born at that time. It's basically when our idea of future changed. It was maybe the moment where we thought for the first time about sustainability. It's when the digital started to become part of reality in how we consume, how we produce, but also maybe a future of mobility. I remember when I was in school in Stuttgart, I was living in a student housing, where one of the engineer students was working for Mercedes-Benz already, working on cars who would identify street signs, but the whole truck behind had to be, driven with the car for all the software that needed and the hardware that needed to be available for this. So it was kind of the beginning of a moment where we really saw the beginning of what is discussed today. And I'm focusing today on the idea of mobility or individual mobility, which usually is the car. And when we go back to the visions of the future of this form of transportation or how we travel, we have all these movies in mind that tell us what's possible. We learned about flying cars in The Fifth Element. We looked into traveling to underwater realities. We traveled intergalactic, we traveled to the center of the Earth or through time, past, future. We traveled through our blood systems or we jumped into other dimensions. We had teletransportation as one reality, but also we traveled into the digital as seen in Matrix. And this might be the most realistic one, actually. This is what we are already practicing today. It's maybe the nearest future that we have. Everybody seems to agree that electricity is the next thing in everything we do, in everything we produce. It's the distribution and the production of electricity that's important. Of course, it will be the car that's electrified, even if it's maybe not as sustainable as we think it should be. Then the digital comes in. We have all these apps that tell us how to logistically maneuver our everyday life. This comes into the car. It's our reality that's overlaid with an augmented reality, and that's what we are taking for granted already today. We take examples from our material life and try to understand what's happening in the digital and use this as a role model. We poke, we like, there's a wall. But we also learn different body languages like swiping, pinching, all different forms that haven't been really necessary before, now became kind of a survival strategy. Driving now is not only what we see, but also what we need to see, what's might predicted that's happening. It's an augmented reality, not about just the now, but about things that might happen. It's a prediction tool and also tells you how to control yourself. But this is what we're still used to today. We drink, we smoke, we shave, we read, we talk on the phone. That's kind of the Shiva driving that we are practicing today. But there is this augmented reality, something in the digital that's maybe closer than we think. So our bodies and us connect to each other. We talk to the city and to other elements in the city. We talk about big data. Of course, the car is one of these elements that become an interface and a mediator between these realities. And this digital tsunami here flooding Paris takes away a lot of things that we take for granted. It cleans out, it washes away visual or sonic pollution. So for example, in a very old-fashioned example, Sao Paulo was full with all these advertisements on the walls. And the law a couple of years ago predicted, or actually prevented, more advertising or had to clean the houses of advertising, so the buildings became part of the foreground again. Similarly, technological smart city development might take all this shit that we have in the city to help us logistically maneuver our everyday life, like streetlights, crosswalks, signs, A.WAY, and replace it with smart technology, and therefore the city comes back to the foreground. Also, the Earth Hour in March tells us about light pollution of cities. And so by switching off the light for an hour, we realize how much we actually are used to this kind of technology of light and electricity. And if cars will become self-driving, it's a similar development. The car doesn't need light anymore because the driver doesn't need to see where it's driving. The car knows where it's driving. So again, the infrastructures, the heavy, loaded street traffic zones through the city will not be as visible as they are today, and the city comes back as the main material of the city. So if the stop-and-go traffic will be replaced by a constant flow, a smooth way of how cars drive through the city, even heavy traffic streets might become a completely different reality. The property value might go up. If you think back to rivers or lakes who became the dirty backside of cities, it was noisy, it was polluted. All of a sudden, through new technologies and taking away all that kind of industry from the water roads to other parts of the city, these become the most valuable parts of a city again. So having a house on a lake or on a river, of course, is a completely different reality today than it was. And similarly, we could also think that maybe the streets with nice cars, maybe playing music or having some kind of water noise with them, not polluting the city through gas pollution or light pollution, might become completely a different reality when it comes to real estate in cities. Also, we can gain more space inside cities by collapsing 3 lanes of normal driven cars that can be actually compressed onto 1 lane because self-driving cars are kind of talking to each other and managing each other. So therefore, a reality that we have today on the left side, which is driving cars, parked cars, car ownership also in question, of course, will then turn into larger sidewalks, buildings have more space to breathe or to extend, and the traffic itself is reduced to one lane. Nowadays, if this happens, it usually gets kind of occupied by little parklets or infrastructure that's obsolete, is taken over by green. This is a picture of the High Line in New York before it was transformed into one of the most successful public areas in the world. So there is this kind of extra zone that is available to us, and we have to think, what is this extra space that we need today or tomorrow or maybe in the long future? Because every generation had their, based on desires or fears, a different form of extra space. In the 50s to 70s, a kind of a shelter to protect yourself from radiation fallout was considered to be a must-have. Or a ping pong room in the 70s. I remember in Germany, every house had a ping pong room in the basement. Panic rooms in the 90s were the spaces that you felt safe because at some point there might be an intruder to your home, and that's where you can escape to. Winter gardens in the 80s, the first time where there was an in-between zone between an interior homey place and the garden outside. So it's this buffer zone, a climate buffer zone that was quite popular. Nowadays, the second kitchen is a reality where you cook in a separate space, but you have this social kitchen where you invite your friends to sit around one boiling little broth, and that's basically, what we consider a kitchen should look like once it's exposed to your friends. And we have the reality of the skin, which is the thickening of our space. And this is maybe now the desire or the fears that we have today. We're insulating our buildings and thickening the buildings, so it's about the protection of the interior, but more of a climatic protection. And then there's this little balcony that we add to it to get some fresh air as well. So is this really what we need and what we want? I think there's a different form of interconnected reality, which the digital also brings to us, where we already know about the interior life of buildings. We know user patterns, we know the distribution of infrastructure, of wires and other infrastructure. We also, of course, know kind of all the spatial contribution, spatial configurations, and also the programmatic flexibility of buildings. So if this information reality is maybe the extension, that is what we are practicing today. So it's this kind of digital information crust that becomes this mediator between inside and outside. And we call this the poke layer of our cities, where we touch data, where we touch information, where we get in touch with our kind of built environment and trying to figure out what is this information, how can this other entity, the city around us, react to us. So the windshield, when you jump back into the car, becomes the interface between you and this information city. And if cars usually have been driving machines and viewing machines, that's how you look outside, now they become the experience machines. You're inside, and the windshield becomes your mediator, and you can actually fine-tune and personalize and individualize the way you drive through the city. And this is now our projection where maybe the windshield then really creates every city into your personalized city. You're not driving through Paris anymore or through Berlin or through Madrid. You're driving through Peter's city or to Sandra's city or through Philip's city. And by turning the screen to your personalized view, how to perceive the city, there are different forms of modes and statuses where you can actually adjust it to your current situation or mode. So in this case, the mode is off and the status is invisible, so you're driving through the city, but you're not really seen by other smart devices. But if you're in the status of wandering and you wander through nature, everything that's not nature or not trees is blocked out and neutralized, and all you see is trees. So you might actually just take your car wandering through nature, as it was a practice in the 50s, 60s, once people had cars, to make this beautiful day-long trip through the countryside. You might be in a status of flirting and you're looking for bars and clubs. This is what you see. This is becoming your foreground where information is selected for you. And one step further, you might be in the status of turned on and get necessary information for that as well. But if you're looking for real estate and you're very busy, this is the information that you get available to you while you're driving through streets and through the city. you have offer at hand and can make selections and be much closer to decision making. So that city we call Polkville, and there's a small view how we occupy and might experience that conceptual city called Polkville. And there's a very short movie. Now we jump further, no movie, but it's basically a flight through that skeletal space that you just saw right now. This becomes somehow a prototypical section of a street where you see how the inside and outside starts to melt into each other. There are pockets of space, of public space inside buildings. There's private information and private space coming onto the public sphere in the street. And this might be just a way where we are heading in the very near future. And just to finish this presentation, I want to show you some of our projects that are taking these kind of thoughts into maybe a kind of even prototype architecture that looks or could look like this. This is a border station in Georgia on the Black Sea to Turkey. And you see these different cantilevers and pockets that become really places of reunion or of union rather than separation of two countries. It's a meeting place where the beach is a very popular location, but also on top of the rest stops, of the checkpoints, you can meeting rooms for conferences, for family parties, for family festivities, and use that as a real place, as a public place, rather than a place of fear and anxiety because you go from one country to the other. One office building in Hamburg, also taking that kind of fluid interior, flexible office space with very specific locations on the facade, and somehow also having the echo of that in the park. Our most famous project in Sevilla, and it's still standing, it's actually a permanent project, it's the new icon of the city, becomes a big roof, a cantilevering, skeletal shadow device sitting on Roman ruins, which is an archaeology museum. But it became the place to overlook the city, mostly for tourists, but also for citizens, but also the place where the whole city and the society of Seville discusses about the future of the country and the future of their culture. But also on a nice summer evening, that's where the place becomes busy, is where you meet your friends and where you celebrate your fraternity. We also work on single-family houses or family villas. Here, the interconnection of landscape and house becomes quite a fluid entity. And in exhibition designs, embedded with information technology here for Volkswagen on sustainability and mobility, an exhibition design in Wolfsburg. Or for rest stops in Georgia, where it's not only a gas station, but it's also a cultural space, it's an arts and crafts market. It's as much a service architecture for the cars who need gas drive through, but also a kind of a local cultural center for the community around it. And that's another version of that. So if all of this was kind of a prototype for a better future, we know this from these prototypal cars covered with these camouflage patterns to either raise attention for those cars, there's something new coming, look, it's happening, or to be invisible, not always revealing everything, creating a certain secret for a better future to come, for futur parfait. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Juergen.